Hi, this is Eric Durak, and this is Med Health Fit, the TV show that integrates wellness and healthcare. And tonight our guest is TJ Fortuna. He is a local fitness trainer and holistic health coach, and he is the president of Fortuna Fitness here in Santa Barbara. Welcome to the show, TJ.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so the glasses come on. You're a local Santa Barbara guy. What made you decide you want to get into the fitness field?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. So when I was 15 years old, my dad actually opened up a gym. I was living in Bakersfield at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I worked front desk during high school years, and then when I was 17, I started selling gym memberships. I noticed as I would sign people up that I wanted to help them out a little bit more, and I really thought I could.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up showing them some exercises, learning about their story. Ends up, long story short, I get certified and went down the personal training route years after that.
Okay, and you say that you've been training for 6, 7, 8 years now, right?
I've been training in Santa Barbara for about 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
I've been training since I was 19, so about 13 years now in total.
So you're in your 30s, huh? Okay.
32.
All
32
right,
this year.
32, all right. But you're not just a trainer, you're also a businessman. And I've watched you, and I'm going to sort of preface this. I don't want to talk too much about myself here, but I started personal training in the early 80s. When I was an undergrad, and I got a job in Ann Arbor, Michigan at the Downtown Athletic Club, and it was a very cool place because you took an elevator up to the top floor.
Yeah.
And you walked into this place, and it had a counter at the front, and you had to walk around to each racquetball court because
Wow.
all these places were racquetball courts.
I was going to
back
say
in the day.
racquetball.
But then they converted these racquetball courts to, one had the weight training, one had the flexibility,
Yep.
one had the yoga, and then a couple of them had racquetball back then. But that was during the transition phase when, essentially I wasn't the first generation of personal trainers, but I was there pretty much at the beginning. So when I watch you train, and I watch some of the other young personal trainers here in town and at other places, and kind of watch how you do things, and then you and I had a conversation where you said, well, I'm actually hiring someone for AC4 Health Club here in town. So part of your business is not just acquiring new training clients. You actually hire new talent, and you interview people, and you're trying to build specific businesses here in town. Is that correct?
Yeah, one thing I found with our industry is that a lot of trainers come in with the passion. They really want to coach, they really want to help people get results,
Mm-hmm.
but they lack the business sense to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
So the number one failure I see in our industry is not enough teaching of the business side. I love that side. I grew up in it. So
Right.
I look at it like, hey, you come in with your baseline knowledge. I'll help you get up to speed with more of what I consider like a holistic approach and a holistic system towards helping our clients get results.
Mm-hmm.
But then also learning, how do you find clients, and how do you turn those clients into long-term
Right.
paying clients?
Which
who are
retention
getting
is
results.
you go to the health club conference every year. I just came back last month from San Diego, International Health and Racket Sports, and they have a whole day on just retention. You
Totally.
got these people that sign up in January. How do you keep them in your club
Totally.
for month after month after month? And it's always been a big challenge. Now, how did you get involved with AC4, which is Tony Calhoun? He's a long-term local fitness guy. Used to own the Gold's Gym. I mean, Tony and I go back almost 30 years.
Totally.
So,
Yeah, Tony Calhoun and the family, they're really amazing. They opened up those AC4 Fitnesses about 5-6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I owned a personal training studio in Old Town Goleta.
okay.
So I had walked in their gyms as they had just opened up, and I walked in, I saw this club. It was clean, well equipped, all the essentials of a nice facility.
Mm-hmm.
I told them congratulations. They said, hey, jump on board. I said, not now, but I always kept them in mind. So when I moved back into town about 3 years ago, and I'll tell that story a little bit later, but when I moved back into town, that was the first person I called up. So I said, hey, Tony, I'm back in town. I'm going to be doing personal training. What do you have going on over there? And he made a really cool situation for me to make that my home. My clients love it. They love it as soon as we started.
It's a really great club. I believe that almost everyone there is really, really nice, but a lot of people don't really talk to each other because it's, this sort of in their own personal exercise space, and I get that. And
Yeah.
I know a few of the people, but through you, I'm actually, introduced to more and more people. Because as you know, my time is very limited. I get in, some days I'm only there for 20, 25 minutes, and I have to get back home or something.
But you're moving, you're sweating. You get in there and you're freaking, 45 minutes to an hour and a half, and you're moving nonstop.
Yeah.
I don't know that you ever stop.
Well, my thing is that with training, I'm an old school guy, so I understand the 4 phases of the periodic training and the whole thing about work to rest ratios, which a lot of people, I've been in the health club field, I've been working out at health clubs since I was in high school. And I really see that a lot of people do not understand this whole, like what we call today the HIIT method, high intensity interval training. Mm-hmm. I've been applying that pretty much my whole career. I don't know if you know this about me, but in high school and college I ran the decathlon. So I had to do everything, the sprints, the jumps, the throws, the 1500, the pole vault, all those kind of things. So you have to be good at a number of different things. So when I go into the gym, I'll do a workout and I'll look at the clock. And so I got 20, 25 seconds, boom, second set, 25 seconds, boom, third set. So in 3.5 minutes, I've got 4 sets, 5 sets done, and this guy next to me, he's only got 1 set. So I can get 5, 6 stations done with between 3 and 5, 6 things. And I actually apply things like this. There's a Russian training methodology that I learned in college where you will start out with a warm-up set. Let's say you're doing leg extensions. You start out with maybe 100 pounds, then you go 120, 2 sets, or 2 reps, 140, 2 reps, 160, 2 reps, 180, 2 reps, 200, 2 reps, 220, and you go up to where you're just barely getting those 2 reps, and then you go back down 20 pounds each, and you do 5 reps until you get back to where you started. So in less than 2 minutes, you've got almost a maximal contraction, and then you've got this endurance with very little rest in between. So you're really tearing apart the muscle groups. And I do it on bicep curls, triceps, chest, whatever that I can change a pin. Abdominals, I do it where I can change a pin. So I try to apply those types of things. But again, you guys know this. You just call it something different, like the HIIT training. There was no HIIT training when it was called intervals back then. But you guys have all of these training things, and you're applying these. But one of the things that we got to talking about, which we're going to spend most of our time here tonight, is that I noticed that you were training some people who probably, in most people's opinion, don't have any business in a health club because they're sick. They're wearing braces on their leg. They're having really a hard time getting up the stairs. You can see that they've got some tremors. That their leg length discrepancy. Their muscles are very atrophied. Something is medically wrong with these people. And I spoke with you, and you said, well, they have multiple sclerosis, MS. So tell us a little bit about how how you sort of blossomed into this special population group.
Yeah. So, really it started with about 3 years ago, I moved back into Santa Barbara, and I got connected with the local MS group. That was part of my coming back in and getting in touch with Tony Calhoun. But when I got involved in the MS group, and I was listening to what they were doing, how they were going about their program, one big piece I noticed was there was no exercise or nutrition program. It was a support group, but one of the things that I've always experienced is giving you the most energy, exercise and nutrition, they weren't even talking about.
Right.
So for me, that was a huge thing. And the first thing I asked was, hey, can we get an exercise program started? So also over at AC4, they said we'd be happy to host it. We started an exercise program. That's the class that you saw. We have people come in for, just a little bit of movement, a little bit of cardio, a little bit of strength training, some flexibility. And our whole goal is get them in, get them moving, get them energized, and try to get them into that flow of an exercise routine to feel that it actually can be medicine for the body, as I believe it is.
Well, I mean, the American College of Sports Medicine has their exercises medicine platform that they do a lot of work. And of course, from our conversations that 26 years ago, I started the Cancer Welfare Program at the Santa Barbara Athletic Club. And the same thing, you have people that sometimes have absolutely no functional capacity at all. I mean, I had people who started on 0 watts on the bike. They couldn't even go a minute. And then at the end of the 10-week program, they're doing the Versa Climber for 15, 20 minutes. Totally. And I log down all of their information every single session, and we publish some data on that, and I can see how you're working with your people is that with the exercise, and I believe that AC4 has pretty much everything that you would need, from cables to light dumbbells to I mean, just body weight with, doing, having you, do some things. And then, of course, they've got the little exercise room there with more cables and then the stretching room upstairs. And all of those kind of things are there. So people can actually get from A to B and then from B to C and march right down there where they become stronger and their balance is better and all that stuff. Explain to me a little bit about what multiple sclerosis is, so our audience knows how fitness can be so successful with this.
Yeah, definitely. So MS, it attacks the central nervous system. So what it does is it affects the myelin sheath in the brain and in the spinal cord.
Okay.
So with what we're trying to do with exercise is everywhere from, so let me tell you a little bit about what they're experiencing. People with MS experience everywhere from cognitive function, decline.
Right.
They'll feel chronic fatigue. These are some of the less extreme, although these are already extreme. Numbness in their legs, arms, hands, parts of the body, whatever area that they're getting lesions in the brain that will affect that function of the body.
And using an anatomy term, sclerosis or sclerotic is a hardening of a certain tissue in the body.
Yeah.
So multiple sclerosis is there's lots of different...
Lots of scars.
Lots of scars. We'll call it scarring tissue or a hardening of the myelin.
Yep.
And the myelin is the outer aspect of the nerve cell, just like the rubber coating on all of the plugs here, is that once you damage that outer core, you have a problem with the nerve conduction. So I would say that they probably have trouble walking, that their gait balance is not good, just from a motor standpoint.
It all starts with where in the brain that it affects.
Okay.
So for instance, the reason I even got introduced, and I haven't even told you about this, but the reason I even got introduced to the MS group is in 2016, I was diagnosed with MS. And having the time in the fitness industry that I had, at the time I was operating health clubs, kind of burning the candle at both ends, which will find that stress is a big part of most disease. My stress levels were through the roof. My diet was actually off track. I wasn't exercising like I should be. I was just operating the facilities and pushing. So with that, I ended up getting diagnosed. And for me, what I did was go back to my earlier training that I had learned years ago and taken a holistic approach towards helping my clients out. I just basically ate my own medicine, ate my own dog food, like they say. So from there, I was able to reduce my symptoms. I got into the group and I said, hey, I want to help some other people experience these same things. How to eat better, how to breathe, how to mindfulness techniques, and just really how the basic things help out.
Okay, well let's start with the exercise.
Yeah.
And I know this is different for every person, but let's sort of look at maybe a few different types of exercises, physical exercise, and then we'll talk about nutrition, then we'll talk about some mind, body, and breathing, etc. So what kind of exercises do you see that kind of work real well for MS?
Yeah, it goes back to, like you said, it is very dependent on the person and how they're affected by it and what they've done with their lifestyle before and during diagnosis. So really what I do is I find out who my client is right off the bat. We go through a series of testing. I do movement screens. I learn what muscle imbalances they have. We always start with stretching. The first goal is to make sure that all the joints are at the right length-tension relationship, kind of like spokes on a bicycle tire. Some of the spokes you need to tighten up, some of them you need to loosen.
Right, you have to true the tire.
Exactly. And if you stretch everything out, you're gonna have some issues.
Right.
If you tighten everything up, you're gonna have some issues. So the body's very similar in that some things need to be tightened, strengthened with weight machines. Some need to be stretched out. So we start with an assessment, and then we determine for this person what's best for them. Everybody starts with core. Everything starts with the core. So my first goal is make sure their core is functioning properly. Because if the core is not functioning properly, which the core is what's in between the upper and the lower extremities.
Your abdominals, your oblique muscles, your multifidus, your low back, etc. So
yeah, and core is really any muscle that attaches to the spine. So first we start with the core, basically bringing the two halves together. And then after that, we go through the basic movement patterns: pushing, pulling, bending, twisting, lunging, squatting. And based on the person, it's for most of my clients, there's a lot more pulling exercises usually than pushing exercises. We do a lot of glute work, a lot of core work, a lot of hamstring work, things to help them stand up tall. So I might have some clients on the selectorized circuit, you know, the circuit that we have at AC4 Fitness.
Yes.
So I might have them on that 30-minute circuit because there's not a lot of stability and I need them to get strong first.
Exactly.
And then some of my clients that are very strong, but there's not a whole lot of stability, we'll start off with some stretching out, some foam rolling, and then hop on a Swiss ball.
Right.
Remember the Swiss ball? Get them on that balance ball, get their hips working, basically just get them mobile, get the body-mind connection going.
Excellent. And I remember, you know, in my days with, you know, this is, you know, back in the day when I started working with cancer patients, there was almost zero research on exercise and cancer. And I would say, well, if this woman has got, you know, she's had a breast cancer surgery, she's had a mastectomy, well, she's not going to be chest pressing, she's not going to be doing pull downs, she's not going to be doing pretty much anything that's going to be moving the shoulder girdle. She might do some light biceps, she might do some light tricep work, but she can do leg press, she can do leg extensions, she can do sitting leg curls, she can do standing calf raises. So there's if I can remember this, back in the 60s, there was in a book on, well, actually it was 1949 by Krauss, it was a therapeutic exercise, and they talked about this thing called reciprocal intervention, where if you have one arm that's broken, you'll exercise the other arm and this one will heal faster. And this is stuff that was done by a lot of these therapists from the 40s, 50s, and 60s when everyone was in a cast. So they would take soldiers, they would take sports people, whatever, and they would look at certain types of exercises, and that's where I think that a lot of people, you know, you actually just said that. You were saying that, well, this person might do this for the upper body and this, and you're switching it around. So in other words, you're not just putting them on a circuit where everyone does leg press, everyone does chest press, everyone does. I mean, that's fine for general population, but not special population.
You know, the big take home that I try to work on with you know, my friends, my group with people with MS is that we're still people, we're still human beings, and a lot of things that are good for most human beings are actually good for us. We just have a slight different way we go about it, meaning we still need to push, we still need to pull, we still need to squat, because in life we do all those things.
Right.
So unless we're going to sit in a room, sit in a chair and not go anywhere, not go do anything, right? We need to train.
Right.
We have to get out there. So my big push is to say, hey, look, we still need to eat healthy. We need to eat organic foods. I know we want to talk about nutrition here in a minute. We want to move on a regular basis. You want to have fun. You want to go out with your friends and go hang out and have that loving bond with your friends and family. Act normal. Act like a human being. I mean, I would say for most diseases in general, my experience is that in working in the gym, like I said, since I was 15 years old, working 7 days a week in the gym, it was a family business, that's how it is.
Yeah.
You know, you end up finding that people can heal in miraculous ways when they believe that that's what they're there to do. That's what they won't let that up. They feel convicted to heal and get better.
Well, I think that people I'm not dissing on the medical profession per se, but in medicine there is a level of dependency on a medication. There's a dependency on a particular type of therapy. You know, regular visits to the doctor. Whereas I've seen in my career, and I've worked with tons of special populations. Started with diabetes, cancer, hypertension, stroke, Guillain-Barré syndrome, autism, etc. Work with, you know, many different types of groups, and I've seen that once you give them basically the roadmap, and then they get hooked on it, you could almost get customers for life that want to be involved with wellness as opposed to being involved with sick care.
Sure.
So let's talk about the nutrition thing. So is there a specific type of diet, and what is the consensus on how this would work with the inflammation, the sclerosis, et cetera, et cetera? Is there any sort of healing diet that you promote for your group?
Sure. You know, it really started way back when I first heard about MS. There was a woman, actually I first heard about MS back in 2006 or 7.
Okay.
You know, and I didn't know a whole lot about nutrition at the time. We weren't talking a lot about it. The first person I heard talk about MS with nutrition was Terry Walls. Dr. Terry Walls had claimed that she had healed her body of MS and healed her symptoms, went from a wheelchair to standing based on a paleo diet. And the paleo diet was very specific with certain foods, certain vegetables that you needed more of. But in general, that's where I started. So when I was diagnosed, I started with my food. I said, okay, well, grains out, dairy out. I went and did some functional testing to find out what my body was intolerant to. And then from there, I cleaned up my diet. But it's basically a paleo diet. Lots of vegetables, lots of organic. If I'm eating chicken, it's free range.
Right.
If I'm eating inorganic, if I'm eating beef, it's grass-fed beef.
Right, and paleo, like the keto diet now, has a tendency to look at obviously not a lot of processed foods, a lot of vegetables, but like, you know, a little bit higher amounts of meat as a percentage of protein and fat in the diet.
Yeah, so with that, I would say, you know, paleo has a lot of, I've personally eaten paleo for about 7 or 8 years now. Gone to Paleo FX, Ancestral Health Symposium. I've seen a lot of speakers talk about this subject. I've read a lot of books on this subject. There really isn't just one way to interpret it. The way that I do it for myself is lots of vegetables, because that's really where that's where all the nutrients are, specifically for the myelin that we want. That, and well, we'll have to say the fats.
So I mean, you know, the big thing is omega-3s. You know, you're looking at avocados.
Yep.
You know, oil, specific types of things that giving you the omega-3 fatty acids that are really, they help every cell. I mean, every cell in the body has a bilipid, you know, fat membrane that needs to have the fats in order to keep the cell structure, and people don't really understand that. So
yeah, I want to. I don't know if the number's right, but I want to say the brain's about 80% fat.
I think the brain's 100% fat, a little bit of protein, but I think the brain is
right?
essentially almost a fatty tissue. Yeah.
So with that, we need fats, and one of the issues that I see most of the time in clients, or that I've seen over the last 10 years with clients that were that had come to me that were experiencing Alzheimer's, dementia, they were all on a low-fat diet. I recognized very early on that something was off about that. I said, well, hold on a second, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
So currently I'm reading a book by David Perlmutter. He wrote the book Grain Brain. Him and Alberto Vialdo, they have this whole protocol based on getting DHA in olive oil, coconut oil, getting your fats in there, actually trying to minimize some of the saturated fats. So that's where you would, some of the saturated fats that are found in red meat and whatnot, for their program, that's nixed. But you know, realistically, it's yeah, we do need high quality fats. We need lots of vegetables, and back to basics, no processed foods, eliminating toxins. So the junk that you're getting in the fast food, the junk that you're getting a lot of times at restaurants, you know, you end up finding that your kitchen's the safest place to eat.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, my wife and I have been shopping at the farmer's market since I moved to Santa Barbara. So you know, and every week my fruits and vegetables are, you know, organic or you know, et cetera. So that's just been sort of a part of it. And you know, our kids grew up that way too. And now my kids both live in Michigan, and I know that their diets are not exactly as good as they could be, because I just don't think that in the Midwest, I mean, we have access to food here in Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, San Diego on the coast, and in Central California where it's grown the day before or that same morning. We have folks that come to the Santa Barbara, or the Santa Barbara Street market, and you know, they were up at 4 o'clock in the morning picking stuff. They got on the road at 6, and they're here at 8:30, and you know, and then you're eating stuff that's about as fresh as it's going to get. Go ahead.
You know, I wanted to talk a little bit about food just for a second. You know, with my clients, generally what they're all going to do is they're going to do a food test. We're going to figure out what metabolic type they are, whether they're a fast or a slow oxidizer, which is based off of metabolic typing. So they're still a person. They're not just MS, right? So there's no food just for MS, but for this person, there's going to be something very specific for them that's going to do well. So after a series of tests, we learn where the imbalances are at in their diet. We first work on quality food and eating quality. So less steps from the farm to the table. After that, we focus on meal timing. Most people are skipping meals. They're skipping the first meal of the day, breakfast. So when the stress is highest in the morning, their body just stays stressed out. Cortisol stay elevated because now their blood sugar's off. So this is an issue. So again, my focus with clients, and certainly with people with MS and myself, keeping inflammation down means keeping blood sugar stable.
Right.
So once blood sugar's stable, we're eating quality food, and we've done some tests to learn, are they more predisposed to doing very well with a high-fat, high-protein diet, or are they better off eating a little bit more carbohydrate?
Right.
Some people do better with more carbohydrate.
Right.
So
well, I know that Mercola, Joe Mercola has been talking about the relationship between blood sugars and insulin and leptin for the last few years, and he really says if you can moderate your insulin levels, because I remember I read, 30 years ago, there was a really interesting paper in Diabetes Care, and it was called Insulin and Atheroma. It was this huge study this guy did, and he basically says it's not the blood sugars you need to be looking at, it's the insulin. And he looked at animal studies, human studies, and epidemiology studies. So, and he basically said, but you're absolutely right, is that, so you're talking about these dietary formulas here that I think are very important. Now, we've got a couple minutes to go. So, quick question here. I saw a gentleman last year in Phoenix, Arizona at the Medical Fitness Network conference speak on MS and exercise, and I think I got you two guys together. Is this something that you would see yourself wanting to do locally, regionally, nationally, is that you're trying to get this information out to people?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's always the tough side of being personally diagnosed with it,
right,
and helping out others. It's an interesting effect that I'm still working through to learn kind of how I feel about it.
Right.
It was so much easier when somebody else had something, but I didn't have it.
Yes.
And now that I have it, I noticed myself seeing it with a different lens.
Right.
So my first goal is helping people in my local community. My friends, my neighbors, my family, and then from there, kind of seeing where that goes. I know there's a lot of research or a lot of information that's not being shared around the country. I feel a lot of information that I've been blessed to be able to have access to, I know can help people out.
Right.
So I'm still working it through. My first goal is to work with Santa Barbara, try to connect the neurologists to the gym, to the farm. Get it all in one big circle where everyone's working together, because we're whole people. We all need this whole system of high quality food and exercise.
So we're coming to a close here, but I notice there's a lot of fitness clubs in the area. Do you see that? Do you think that's going to become saturated here in Santa Barbara, or do you think that we're going to hit like a sweet spot here in the next couple of years?
It's hard to say, because live in the town that I used to live in, Bakersfield. I lived there for 8 years, and we probably have, 40 some health clubs.
Right.
Like big box health clubs.
Right.
There's probably 400,000 people.
Yeah, I guess the market will decide. So let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's continue this conversation in another episode here, because I think you've got a lot of really interesting things to say. Give us a phone number where someone can reach you at.
Yeah, you can reach me. I still have my Bakersfield number, 661-565-6300. I'd love to hear from you. Send me a text message.
All right, TJ Fortuna, thank you for being on Med Health Fit. This is Eric Durack, and we'll see you next time.